Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Well, it finally happened. It's no surprise, it's just that it's a disaster. The Kakhovka hydroelectric dam was blown up by someone. And obviously, the water is rushing downstream and is going to flood big areas of the territory, whomever has that territory. I skimmed through about 12 or 13 articles coming from, actually more, because those were from the Ukrainians, only 12 or 13. From the West, about 7 more. So I don't know, it would be about 20, I would say. And the Ukrainian media has obviously pointed the finger at the Russians. The Western media took what the Russians say as gospel, and obviously the only ones that say a different story are the Russians. Now, the Ukrainians claim that the Russians blew the dam through from within. Somehow they planted inside somewhere, I don't know where somewhere is, some explosives. So they didn't use a missile or anything like that. The Russians claim that, again, Sputnik and Russia Today are full of, hey, they did it. They said a missile hit a Ukrainian missile, hit the dam. Zelensky convened his war, whatever, meeting. They claim the Russians, all this, it's a disaster, which is it is. They say, well, there's some spillage from oil spillage over there. Even the power plant, the nuclear power plant will be somehow affected by this. There will be an environmental disaster. The Russians did it because they were losing, therefore they had to prevent the Ukrainian from advancing. The problem is that the Ukrainian advance that the Russians were claiming was not located there, down there. It was located north of the dam. So now we have the Russians saying no, they used a missile, and they used it for this reason. Hitting it is going to flood the southern part. Therefore, over there nobody can invade. Nobody can cross for a while. Therefore, the Ukrainians can focus their offensive north, where they've been attacking, according to the Russians. Now, the interesting thing here is this. Not necessarily who did it, because who did it is what is the aftermath of this. And my, how should I put it, particular interest is how just some outside media, just outside, that knows nothing. There's two, maybe three parties who know exactly who did it. That is the Russians, the Ukrainians, and probably the Americans. Why? It's like in a crime. The victim and the aggressor, they know for sure they are the ones, Or let's say the Russians didn't do it. They know they didn't do it. They might not know who did it, but they know we didn't do it. Or vice versa. The Ukrainians say, well, we didn't do it, we know someone else did it. So they know it's not them. But on the other hand, the Americans might know if the Ukrainians, might know if the Ukrainians, in case the Ukrainians did it, let them know. Could it work on both sides' interest? Yes, the explosion, because you usually go to, che bono, who benefits out of this, and you go to, follow the money. Well, here the money doesn't play a role, it's who benefits. Well, I think this benefits both in different degrees. But let me show you some maps here where all this occurred. I'm going to use Sputnik, not because Sputnik are gods or anything, but I think, from what I skimmed through other outlets, they showed me some pictures, but just water flowing, and let me show you this so you see on the map. This is one article, Kakhovka Dam attack, mapping the fallout from Ukrainian strike. I don't know if that's what it is, but that's what they say, obviously. So this is the Dnieper River. This is where the plant is, and this is here it goes to Crimea, right down here. And then here, this Kherson, this is going to flow into the Black Sea, which is down south here. Now this shows you how much the whole area will be affected. And Zaporozhye nuclear power plant is up here. So this would probably be the reservoir. Okay, this is partly or fully flooded right now. Flooded. So let's go to, I think that's more here. Okay, they show you again partly and fully flooded what is from the explosion here. And many towns and Russian soldiers were strained on trees and other areas, according to the Ukrainians. I looked at an article coming from the Ukrainians, and they said that the Russian military, and they showed pictures of that, was trained on the trees. Now it says obviously that the reason why the Ukrainians did it, according to Shoigu, is Ukraine destroyed Kakhovka station to transfer units to offensive area. Again, this is according to Shoigu, so this you see better here. So here is Sevastopol, this is Crimea, this is where it occurred, this is Kherson, and from here this is the dam, and from here all this is going to be inoperable. I mean, you can't cross it at this point, I'm guessing. So all this to transfer it for something up north, yes and no. But as I don't know what the whole goal here is with. Again, another article. This shows the same thing. What's been already shown. So let's see. Analyze who might have done it. I said that could work in both sides' interests, because let's say let's put it like this. Let's say the Ukrainians are attacking north in North Zaporozhye Oblast and South Donetsk. If they attack over there, and let's say they somehow have a breakaway over there, they just destroy the Russians and they advance, maybe the Russians are going to do a counter-offensive in Kherson, and therefore these guys will be afraid, will be, caught from behind. I'm just saying. Therefore they say, you know what, we destroyed that, we're gonna, the Ukrainians, I'm looking at the Ukrainians being the perpetrators now, just to use it as a scenario. So we're gonna do this. The Russians cannot come from behind if they decide to attack from south, from Kherson area. So they can't come behind us if we break here. And obviously we're going to free some troops from here to help our operation if there is an offensive operation occurring in South Donetsk, North Zaporozhye. That's where the Russians claim the attacks, the counteroffensive occurs. Let me show you on the map here. That would be even better. The Russian war map, so you can maybe I can explain like that even better. So here it is. So the Zaporozhye, the power plant is right here, south here. Kakhovka right here. This is the reservoir. The Zaporozhye nuclear power plant is down here, right here. Energodar here. This is Kakhovka, where this was blown up. Now that would free, according to the Russians, this part. The Russians would not be able to go around like this, if in case they had this planned. And we have here, this is where the Russians say the Ukrainians are focusing their offensive, right here. So North Zaporozhye region, north here, and south right here, Donetsk. And the Russians are advancing here, according to them, in Kharkiv. And in Kharkiv, or Kharkov, the Ukrainians are evacuating their civilians from this area, from Kupiansk. So it seems like the Russians are focused north, and here is in the middle, in the center, is the Ukrainians. Now I knew the Ukrainians were talking about attacking here and cutting the Russians off. Cutting the Russians off, so they go to Crimea. The Russians will have only Kerch Bridge supposedly, and that would be blown up. Therefore, that's how they're going to get Crimea. That was the one plan that I read about. Now, what would make the Russians, what would be in their advantage if this is blown up? Obviously, they would stop the Ukrainians' possible attack right here towards Crimea, and they could focus here, and try to defend the Ukrainian attack. That would, and then obviously there would be pointing fingers. The Ukrainians, and this is the interesting, not interesting, it's how the West mass media picked the Ukrainian side and the Ukrainian reporting as that's what it is. But I know that plant belongs to the Russians. So again, it's blown by the Russians themselves to blame the Ukrainians. That's how the story goes. And this, the Ukrainians called the United Nations Security Council to have a meeting that they called European, and it's just, as I said, I do not know who did it, but the fact that the Europeans and the Americans obviously took immediately the side of, oh, the Russians did it. It's just, if they have the information, which I don't think they have it, especially what? CNN, MSNBC, and these guys, where do we have it? They just take it from the Ukrainians. But the fact that they don't balance it, oh, we don't know actually. They took it, no, it's the Russians. It's like, wait, how do you know that? Because you look in read their articles. They don't provide, but the evidence provided by the Ukrainians. The evidence is it was blown up from within the dam. Okay, well, as I said, I personally don't know who did it. They know. It's just how these guys just took it. Pop, pop, and that's one side. That's it. It was one side. And it was like ready to be that one side. I didn't expect to be the other way around. Like, oh, well, actually, it was the Ukrainians. Remember when those two missiles, they say one, but I think it was two of them. There were two that landed in Poland that killed those farmers, two of them, I think, in that village. And then what did the Ukrainians do? What did they do? They immediately point out it's the Russians attacked Poland. Poland is a NATO country. NATO must respond by sending troops and attacking Russia. That's what they said. And the Poles would, whoa, take it easy. We don't like this. You have the other, so what I'm saying, that was a provocation right there with no evidence. And it was proven those rockets, those missiles were S-300s from the Ukrainians. But the Ukrainians immediately pointed out it was the Russians. The media said, yeah, it was the Russians, the Ukrainians say. But the Poles said, no, wait, you don't drag us in a war like that. Another example was with the Weasel Senator Lindsey Graham, where he met Zelensky in Kiev a week and a half ago or something like this. And you know that famous or infamous video where it was redacted and put together, edited. I'm sorry, it was edited and put together like we kill Russians and that's the best investment. You know who released that to the public in that form? Because those were two sentences apart from one another in different context, kind of. But he said yes, and the kill Russians die, and that's aiding Ukraine was the great, whatever the best investment US did. They were not right after another, were like this, but still he said it. You know who edited that and put it together and released it? The same guys who now tell us, for instance, that the Russians did destroy the dam, which I don't know who did. But what I'm trying to say is kind of like, where's the credibility? But these guys, and the one with Poland, the two missiles over there in Poland, again, you don't have the credibility, but the mass media forgot about that. Why? They don't care. And I'm still waiting for those pipelines, Nord Stream 1, Nord Stream 2, to find out who did it. Again, I think the Russians just shot themselves in the groin. What do you think? I'm angry because it's a disaster, and a lot of people will be more affected than they are with this BS war, and the environment as well, and then all this hanky-panky. No, the Russians will not, even if they did it, they will not say it was them. The same with the other guys. Will say no, it was not us. But the problem is, who has the megaphone? Who has a bigger megaphone? And they have a bigger megaphone, the Ukrainians here in the West. And you're gonna hear one side. Well, I want to hear the truth. I don't care. I want to hear both sides, all sides. But I want evidence and facts. And what do you think the Russians will say? Yes, we did it. Even if they did it, I don't think they would ever say they did it, unless after a few years, if they lose somehow, whatever happens, they're gonna say, yeah, we were the idiots. Therefore, yeah, we're bent over. We're gonna take it now. And the Ukrainians would not do that. Not. That's out of the question. Just look at the Western media and see how they portray this. makes you throw up. Why? Because they don't know. But it's like an order. But it's not an order. It's, as I said before, they're not like spoken, hey, we're gonna cover for this. They know, because that's how the environment goes. You know who's your boss, you know who's in charge, you know how to react. They're not that stupid. And they are in it in a way, they are invested in this war in a way that they chose a side. You know what's gonna happen? When the Russians, let's say, win, or when the whole thing will end in a draw and both sides will claim a victory, you're going to hear the mass media immediately not switching sides. It's not going to switch sides. It's going to become more balanced. And right now it's all here. It's going to become a little bit more balanced, and they're going to say, what's changed? What changed? You failed. If they fail in Ukraine against the Russians, then they will come a little bit more moderate, a little bit more balanced. But don't forget, they will still be on the other side, that's for sure. Why? But they will not say, oh, we lost. Neither the Russians. They will not say, hey, we lost. Both sides will claim victory, regardless if Ukraine is still a country or not. Let's say Ukraine is not a country, and the Russians, let's say, I'm just exaggerating to the extreme. The Russians, let's say, conquer Ukraine. And say, okay, now it's going to be a peace, whatever's going to be controlled by the Russians. The Westerners, NATO, will still say they won. They won something. They made the Ukrainians to have peace. They would focus on whatever they want everybody to be focused. Forget everything else. It's like you watch a fight in a boxing game when someone got knocked out, and the family of the person who got knocked out will tell the story how Gigi punched a few times the other guy who eventually knocked him out, but they're not going to say Gigi got knocked out. No, Gigi now punched him. You see that uppercut, man? Yeah. That's all. And they will never talk about the knockout or who won. It was the game ended. The fight ended. That's how I say. The fight ended. And Gigi punched, and they showed that the other guy is not that tough, and caused damage. He got knocked out. Oh, no, we're not going to mention that. That's what's going to be with Ukraine. Watch it. If the Russians will eventually not lose, not about winning, but not lose, which is going to have the territories, we're going to have a peace over there, no NATO in Ukraine. This is what I'm talking about. Neutral Ukraine, that's how the Russians will win. That's their win. But in the meantime, we have this tragedy, and that's how war is, unfortunately. And we can go back and find out what started. I would go to 1991. 1991, and not for creation of Ukraine again. No. I think the whole NATO expansion that pushed more and more. NATO, who did not have to still be around, but it was nevertheless, pushed for east. The Russians told them this, no, that's, you come too close, we don't care about you. And the Russians should have not felt the knife coming in and going inside between their ribs. No. Why? No, we don't have any plans. Just look Yugoslavia, Iraq, or all those, Libya. We just bring peace and democracy, unfortunately. So here it is, tragedy. We're never gonna find out, or never, but it's gonna take years until someone will say, yeah, it was these guys. The Russians will provide us with evidence. It was a Stormy Waters missile, UK, whatever, storm missile. Oh, that hit it. Nobody was saying, yeah, it was. And then the guys say, no, it was from within. The Russians did. No, it wasn't. War, that's what it is. As I say many times, I say the first victim of war is truth. And then, the obvious victims. And we are the victims as well. Don't fool yourselves. We are at a lower level, much lower level, but we are. You see, you know how resources go over there. We have to listen to all these liars and, go and work and shut up, basically, and consume. And watch their stupid shows on the TV and their games to distract us from important stuff. And yes, go and vote. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.